here at Qurantine Cuisine. Welcome back for episode number 10. We thought we'd change it up today. We've been doing a lot of dinners and had a couple of requests actually from some followers to try something a bit different. So we're going to do more of a brunch item today. And this dish is called fried chicken and waffles. Yeah, if you can believe that, putting fried chicken and homemade waffles together doesn't seem to be a great combination, but it's absolutely delicious. I first enjoyed this dish at a smokehouse in Toronto called Bark and made it just a couple of times for the family. So we thought we'd give that a try today. Now the history of fried chicken and waffles, very interesting. The waffle part of fried chicken and waffles comes from, it's believed to come from Dutch settlers who came in Maryland and brought their waffles and waffle irons with them. In fact, Thomas Jefferson, it was alleged that he brought some waffle irons back in the 1700s. And it was said that it was actually served with fried catfish at the time. But fried catfish being very seasonal, chicken found its way into the dish. And of course, fried chicken being very much credited with Southern style cuisine. So that's the history as best I know it around fried chicken and waffles. So we're gonna do our prep, a couple stages here to get this going. So let's start cooking. So we're going to soak our chicken for a couple of hours in buttermilk. That's actually the flavor we're going to use. We're going to try the acid from the buttermilk will actually try to break down the fibers of the chicken a little bit, make it nice and tender on the inside. But guess what? We don't have buttermilk, so we're going to try a little kitchen hack here. I'm going to take 500 ml of whole milk, pour that into a bowl, or 2 cups in British measure. And I have now 2 tablespoons or 30 ml of lemon juice. All I'm going to do is stir in the lemon juice into the milk. Just make sure it's mixed up. You don't really need to whisk it heavily. Just going to stir this up here, nice. And I'm going to let that stand for about 10 minutes at room temperature. It's as simple as that. It's a quick way to have a substitute for buttermilk. This will thicken up a little bit, probably have a little bit of curd on it as well, but it's the best substitute we can come up with for buttermilk. So step 1 is done. Okay, the next step is to get our chicken cut up. So I have a whole chicken here, and I'm going to butcher that down into some pieces. So we're not going to use large pieces like whole legs. I'll probably take the legs, put them into thighs and drumsticks as well. So I'm just going to take the bird, put it onto our surface here. And generally I just split the bird right down the middle first. This way I can cut up each half of the chicken separately. So what I do is I just try to look for the joint here. So if I can cut off the drumstick first, I'll just try to find the area that is, put that aside. Same thing with the thigh, just cut through, find out where the actual joint is, cut through there. At the same time, I like to trim off some of the fat because this is going to be a fried chicken, and while we don't want it to be super lean, the crisp of the skin is actually very desirable. It is something that I do want to make sure that I don't have excess amount of fat. So we have this side almost done. I'm going to cut this part off right here where the breast is, because that piece here really isn't going to fry up. There's no meat on this at all, so I'm just going to kind of separate this from the breast. And the breast itself, that's a large portion, so I'm gonna just, I gotta clean this up here a little bit as well. And the breast I'm actually gonna cut into 2 pieces. So we have our wing piece there. I'm gonna cut this breast right into 2 pieces. And this way we've got something. In fact, I might just cut this one up again. Better to have a little bit of coating on smaller pieces. This way it kind of crisps up and cooks a little bit better in the fried oil. Okay, so I'm just going to keep going. I've got this one done. I'm going to just keep going and get the other one done as well. Okay, so we have our chicken now put into these nice pieces. Our buttermilk should be just about done now. I'm going to go ahead and put the chicken directly into the buttermilk and make sure it gets coated. I'm going to set that aside for a couple of hours just to make sure that the buttermilk actually does a nice coating and has its chance to work in the chicken and tender it up as well. And so this step is done. Okay, so one of the first things we're going to prep are some whole pecans. These are really great as a topping to our waffles. So I've got the flame up pretty good on the pan here. Just going to let these Toast up nice. Just keep the pan moving, keep the pecans moving around the plate there. The pecans they have a nice nuttiness to them. They're kind of a texture that nice and crunchy. Will complement the syrup very nicely, and also go with the special syrup we're going to make in the fried chicken. It's going to pull it all together really nicely. Okay, so we don't want to get the pecans too charred. Just want to get a nice little brown on the outside, get some toastiness to them. So I think we're just about there. So the pecans are toasted. I'm just going to turn the fire off, let these cool off a little bit, return them to a dish, and then we're ready to go to the plate with these once everything else is ready. Now it's time to make the dredge for our chicken before we go into the deep fryer. So for this, it's pretty straightforward. I'm going to put my dry ingredients in first. So I have a nice pan here that I can dredge the chicken in. I have 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and to this I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of seasoning salt. Make sure I kind of spread it around because we do need to mix this after. 1 teaspoon of paprika, and again, your choice of paprika you can use. This is just a plain, straightforward Spanish paprika. I also have 1 teaspoon of black pepper. Looks like a lot, but once we mix it up, it'll mix in very nicely with our dredging flour. 1 teaspoon of dried thyme as well. And the last ingredient, just for a little bit of a kick, is just a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne. And again, I like my food a little spicier, but not everybody does, so we'll just put a little bit of kick to it, and that'll be it. So I'm just gonna take a fork, mix up our dry ingredients here first. Let's make sure we get them all nice mixed together. What tends to happen with flour is a lot of the dry ingredients tend to fall to the bottom. I don't know why that is. There's a science behind it, I'm sure. But okay, now I have some buttermilk prepared here. I'm gonna put some buttermilk inside. And what I'm looking for is I'm not trying to get this to be a batter. I'm really just trying to have it clump up because the chicken's already been sitting in the buttermilk mixture. So it's gonna have a layer of moisture on it anyways. And we do wanna get some nice chunks of the batter because it'll crisp up really nicely when we go to the fryer. So I might just put a little more inside here, but I think we're looking pretty good right now. So I think our dredge is coming along very nicely, maybe just a little more here. Okay, don't want it to be too wet. Okay, so I think our dredge is ready to go, and we're ready to get our chickens coated. Okay, now we're ready to dredge our chicken. We have our mixture really nicely done here as well. We have our chicken that's been sitting in the buttermilk here for a couple of hours. So I've got everything set up right to left here, just the way I'm working today. So first I start with a piece of chicken. You know, take a little bit of the liquid off. We don't want it all sitting in here because we already have liquid in here. And literally just get the dredge on here. And as you can see, it's gonna provide this really crunchy kind of texture to it, which is exactly what we're looking for because it'll provide a great crunch. Gonna layer that just on our cooking sheet here. Getting everything ready to go into the fryer. The oil on the stove has been preheating, so we have our Dutch oven out, and we've got that set to 360 degrees. You know, ideally 350 is a good temperature for chicken, for being able to fry up the chicken. But I do want it just a little bit higher for the first initial batch, because once we get it in there, the oil tends to cool down pretty quickly. So yeah, there's no clean way of doing this really. Just get your hands in there, you know, fill up the crevices with the dredging mix here. Oh boy, this is gonna be so crispy when we get this out of the fryer. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do the rest of them. Okay, I think that should actually do it. I think we got enough chicken in here that we can get started on the fryer. So chicken's all done. The hands definitely need a bit of a cleaning, and then we're gonna be ready to go to the fryer. Okay, so we're just waiting for our oil to come up to our temperature, desired temperature, 360 degrees. So we're almost there. Okay, perfect. Our oil's all ready. We're ready to begin putting our chicken in. So very simply, as best you can, I just put these in here, skin side down if I can. So many pieces I can get inside here. Yeah, probably get 4 good sized pieces inside here. I'm going to let these fry now, covered actually, for 5 minutes. We don't want them to brown up too fast, nor do we want them to cook too much on the inside too quickly. So covering it tends to do that. So we're just going to hang out here while this fries up for 5 minutes. Okay, so our time's up for the first part of the cooking. Actually, chicken looks like it's roasting up very nicely here. Hot oil. I'm just going to turn these over. Get the other side browned up as well. I'll cover the lid and we'll put this back in for 3 minutes. Okay, so our chicken should be ready by now. It's cooked as much as we want it to be cooked through at this stage. So these look a nice golden brown. I'm going to remove them. I've got a pan waiting here on the side because we're going to go and have to finish these in the oven still anyway. So this is not cooked all the way through, I would say, at this point, but it's cooked sufficiently through that we can get this in the oven just to finish it off to the temperature. We're looking for an internal temperature of chicken around 165 degrees. So these are looking really good. We're just going to get these in the pan right now, and I'm just going to continue and roast the rest of the chicken, or deep fry the rest of the chicken here, and so we'll get caught up with you just before we put this in the oven. Okay, let's just check on our last piece of chicken here. Oh, these look amazing. So what I have here, if I didn't point out earlier, is we have a rack in the bottom of the roasting pan. So I'm going to just continue to remove the chicken from the hot oil here. Put them on the rack. The inside temperature should be around 150. I did test the first ones we took out, so they are a bit underdone, which is exactly where we want them at this point. Okay, we should have enough room in the pan for everybody, so let's just see if we can get these pieces in here now. Okay, so our chicken is all in the pan, as I said, about a 150 degree internal temperature right now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in a preheated 350 degree oven just for about 10 or 15 minutes just to crisp it up and bring the internal temperature up to 165. And then we're off to make our waffles next. Now it's time to make up the batter for our waffles. So the first thing I'm going to do is mix together 2 of our wet ingredients. So I have 1 3/4 cups of milk in a bowl here, and I have 2 large eggs. I'm simply going to crack the 2 eggs into the milk. Then I'm going to take my whisk. I'm going to whisk these up. Doesn't need to be too vigorous, we just want to make sure that the eggs and the egg yolk is all mixed in nicely with the milk here. Okay, so we're going to set that off to the side here just in a moment. Okay, so this is finished. Now I'm going to work on our dry ingredients. So the dry ingredients, what I have here is I have 2 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm going to put that in a bowl here as well. Then I have 4 teaspoons of baking powder that I'm going to mix in here as well. Then I have 1 tablespoon of sugar. And then I have half a teaspoon of salt. So I'm just going to essentially just mix this up a little bit in the bowl. All the wet ingredients, once we mix them in, will help bring this all together as well. Okay, excellent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add our wet ingredients into the flour and start mixing this in. What we were looking for is a really nice batter, nothing too watery, but at the same time just something that's going to sit nicely, prop up in the waffle maker. We don't want to overly mix it. We just want to make sure that the batter is, as it sits for a few minutes, it does tend to thicken up as well. Actually, I do think we have, it's actually a pretty good consistency right there. I'm just going to mix it maybe a little bit more here. Maybe add in just a little bit more of our wet liquid. Everything's pre-measured. I've done this recipe probably 50 times, so I'm pretty good with the confidence in the portions size of each of the ingredients. Okay, now that that's mixed up, the last thing I'm going to add in is I'm going to add in here, I've got some butter that I melted here. It's about half a cup. Nothing is bad without butter, or bad with butter, so everything is better with butter apparently. So the half cup of butter goes in here as well. It's melted. You can use vegetable oil if you'd like to, or a different kind of oil, but the butter just kind of adds a great flavor to the batter of the waffle. Okay, so our batter for our waffle mix is finished, and now we're going to make up some waffles. Okay, now we're ready to make our waffles. We've got this relic in our family from Procter Silex. I don't even know if that company's in business anymore, but we preheated our waffle iron here. This has gotten a good workout over the years. So all I'm going to do now is ladle in our batter that we prepared for the waffles. This will make 4 nice sized waffles. Try to move it out to the edge here a little bit. With the baking powder inside and the salt activating with the mixture, this will puff up very nicely. So we don't want to have it overflowing along the sides. So I just put like 4 ladles in here, just thereabouts 4 ladles. Just move everything out to the side. Okay. Perfect, so that's great now. I'm just gonna lower the lid here and seal this off underneath, lock it up nice, let the steam do its work, let the griddles do their work, and get this a nice golden brown. Okay, so the waffles have been in the iron for about 5 to 6 minutes or so, maybe a little more, 7 or 8 minutes or so. So I'm going to open it up and check on them, see if they're a nice golden brown as we want them. Oh, that looks fantastic. So very gently, I just take a fork, fold these over. I'm going to put these in a pan because we might need to keep these a little bit warm while we work on a couple of final steps before we get to the plate. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to ladle in one more batch of these, and then we're going to be ready to finish everything off, get to the plate. This has been a little more involved in terms of meal preparation, so I'm sure the runtime on this video is probably going to be around 30 or 35 minutes. But it's a great recipe. If you get a chance to try this, it's something that the whole family really enjoys very much. So okay, we're going to finish off our last batch of waffles here, and then we're going to go to the final prep steps before we get to the plate. Okay, so our final preparation step for our fried chicken and waffle brunch dish here is making a little bit of a special syrup. So I'm taking some pure Canadian maple syrup. I'm going to pour that into a pot. Oh, that pot's heating, maybe a little bit too warm right now. And to that, I'm going to add some good old Kentucky bourbon. We don't have Kentucky bourbon, so I'm going to put just a little bit of Canadian whiskey inside this as well. Yeah, okay, that's good. Probably about an ounce or so. Just going to bring this to a bit of a boil. Get that mixed around very nicely. And as this comes to a boil, in a minute or so, I'm going to add just a dollop, maybe about a teaspoon or so of butter. Just going to add that right to the pan here as well, and get that all mixed up. So this isn't necessary. You can use just good old Canadian syrup. This is just a bit of something I found online. I thought I'd at least give it a try. Not that we're going to booze it up too much at lunch with some whiskey or bourbon, but just maybe add a nice little depth of flavor to our dish, and nothing better than some warm syrup on the plate as well. So this is pretty much ready. Very, very easy preparation. Brought that to the boil, I'm just going to shut the burner off, get the flame out, and then we're now ready to go to the plate. Okay, so now we're ready to plate. So as you can see, we've got our fried chicken that we've deep fried. It's been finishing in the oven very nicely. We have these golden brown waffles we've made as well. I've got our spiked maple syrup that we're going to put on here as well. And then we're going to do some toppings as well. So let's get started with plating. So the first thing I'd like to do is just get 2 waffles very nicely onto the plate. Well, that's 3, so let's just try with 2. Put 2 waffles on the plate here like this. Then put a beautiful piece of fried chicken on here as well. And then we're going to do a quick pat of butter just on top of the waffles here. Again, everything's better with butter. And then I'm going to just drizzle some of this wonderful warm syrup all around the plate. So all over the waffles, a little bit on the chicken. Believe it or not, it tastes really good. Okay, so we have some waffles on here, or some syrup on the waffles. Now, what we also like to do is we like to just plate some berries off to the side. So you can use bananas if you like, you can use strawberries. Blueberries kind of our favorite in our household. So a nice little garnish for the top of this as well. And finally, these pecans that we toasted off earlier. We're just going to add a few of these on top to add a bit of crunch, a little bit of dimension to our dish. So there you have it. We have fried chicken and waffles with spiked maple syrup on top with some whiskey, a pat of butter, some fresh blueberries and pecans to finish off the plate. Now it's time to eat.